Hi folks, today we're going to be looking at the portfolio of Simon Edwards. So he's a senior 3D generalist and we're going to see if we can point out any areas of improvement to help out. So there's quite a few things in this, so that's already something you want to have a look at. Usually you want something sort of 6 to 8 pieces really, because you want kind of quality over quantity. At the moment you've got 18 I think. It's quite a few bits. So let's have a quick look through them. We won't spend loads on each one, we'll just have a look at it as a general overview. So first, this rock sculpting. Let's see, we've got a ZBrush sculpt. Okay, so you wanted to use it as a platform as well as something that can be used as a tileable rock wall. Okay, cool. Well, I'd say I'd probably keep working on this one because at the moment it's quite soft in areas and you can still see like brush strokes and stuff like that. So it's probably best for this one to take it off and work it up a bit more. You know, look at some more reference, try and get some more of the detail in there, show some proper separation in some of the parts, because at the moment this feels like sort of one piece that's been sculpted into rather than multiple layers of rock, if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, that might be the case, but if it is, make it more obvious by having some sort of further indentations and sharpening some parts that are connecting. Because at the moment you can see here, this is kind of just soft and kind of doughy, you know? So if it's going to be rock, it needs to be harder and sharper. Or if it's sandstone or something like that, you'd want it all to be the same kind of consistency. Whereas when you got bits of both, it's kind of hard to understand what's going on with it. You can also get more bang for your buck with your texturing if you got some more sort of dirt and stuff in the crevices and some edge highlighting going on. A bit more anyway. You've got some at the moment, but a bit more would help emphasize it. Plus at the moment, the base colour itself, have you got just a solid colour on there? Because it feels like it could do with some more noise breakup in the actual base colour itself. So see, at the moment everything is just one fairly uniform value. If you had a breakup in some of the different pieces being slightly different hues, then that would really help to sell the variety, the natural variety that occurs in rocks. But yeah, so we'll not spend too long on that one. Let's see, Bioshock Infinite fan art. Undertow Vigor bottle. Okay, that is cool. Alright, so it's made a 2048 map because it'd be held in hand in first person briefly, so it needs to be decent quality. Okay, yeah, I can see that. 6,000 polys, cool. It's a nice asset. I think I remember seeing this in the past. It's really nice. Honestly, minimal notes on this. What I would say from a portfolio point of view is make sure you're showing your wireframes and your texture sheets and that kind of stuff, because people don't just want to see the end result. They want to see that you are technically capable of doing what you're showing. So showing off that, yes, this could look really cool, but it could be really badly topologized. You know, it could be unusable as a mesh in game. We just don't know that. So I know, for example, one of the art directors that I know, if it's not got a wireframe in the portfolio, he simply won't look at it. So just bear that in mind. It's important to show your workings as well. Okay, oh actually you've got the model in here, never mind. So you can look at the model itself, break the wireframe down. Now to be fair, yes, this is an option, but usually when people are looking through applications, they're looking through hundreds of them in a day and they might give each one 5 minutes tops. So if they have to go into the page and then go into the model, let it load, then find the layer where you turn on the 3D and stuff like that and turn on the wireframe, by then they've probably moved on. So it'd be easy if you could just show the renders of the wireframe. So yeah, as an example, this looks okay from what I can see. Yeah, can't really fault that too much. I'd say maybe reduce it down a little bit more on these sides as it gets smaller, but to be fair, that's kind of being picky. Because yeah, as something gets thinner, it wants less edges on it so that it maintains the same density. Because see here, you've got like, you know, not many edges together, and then here you've got loads at the same point. Also be careful of stuff like this where it's kind of uneven, and I appreciate this because this is a straighter edge, but at the same time it kind of actively points out a sharper point, whereas if it was more split up it would be a bit smoother. But yeah, so this is the reference that you've got. Is this something you've made or is this something you've found? Because it doesn't say. Usually if it's something you found online, it's best to say who made it, basically credit the artist. If you've done it, awesome, just say a concept I made, or you know, whatever it might be. That way it's clear, because people really don't like it when you don't credit the concept artists. Right, so we've got quite a few things to get through. I'll try and be quick on each one of these, just because I don't want to keep you too long, and at the same time there's a lot to get through. So let's see, the Division fan art, broken laptop asset. Okay, 2048 textures, 66 faces, that is very low. Okay, cool. So yep, you're doing quite a bit of stuff in the texture there. Cool, good to see. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is a lot of wasted texture space and I appreciate it's hard to do when there's lots of rectangular shapes here. So sort of a way of tackling this might be to break things down in a different way. It's kind of hard with laptops being solid objects because you don't really get a break for seams and stuff like that, but you could always hide it with stickers or, you know, wires or similar things. So personally, I think maybe if you turn these the other way and scaled like 2 of them up, like the 2 most important ones, so the front 2 pieces, maybe that might help. You could sacrifice the bottom a little bit more, definitely, to make some space, but at least you're showing your textures here, which is more than we had last time, which is good to see. Yeah, I'd say the texturing itself, it feels a little bit flat at the moment, so I'd say just do some, well, you got your reference here, so if you make sure you're using more than one reference image and check your like roughness values and stuff, have a look at some PBR materials online of brushed metal and glass and that kind of stuff, and just check their roughness maps and compare them to yours and see how they're behaving. Because at the moment you've got the kind of like, you've got that brushed metal look, which is pretty cool, and then the dirt breaks it up, which is good. But let's see, the screen itself, I'm getting no specularity from it. If it's meant to be glass, you get some. Granted, screens sometimes have like, you know, things that dull specularity on them, but you'd still expect to see some of it. And the keys themselves, obviously this is all baked, so I'm not going to be super, you know, picky about modeling of the keys and things. The modeling is fine because it's been baked straight in, and I appreciate this is meant to be an asset that's about that big on the screen, so, you know, let's not get too picky about it. But yeah, overall, pretty solid. I would say just be careful about the level of kind of generic grunge you've got on here. I try and make it a bit more storied. So I know you've got like the bullet hole in the corner and stuff like that, and the shattering coming from that position. That's great. That's what you want to see. But the sort of the dirt that's on it feels a little bit kind of just, you know, put on it for the reason of it being on it. Also, I'd put an actual hole in this because it goes all the way through. Yes, it'll be a few more polys, but it would be worth it to have that kind of... it's quite a standout point, basically, so it'd show it off more. And you could have some light coming through it, maybe. That might help. Okay, so let's back up. What have we got here? LMG model. Oh, Fortnite. Okay, so again, some more fan art. Good stuff. I'd be careful of how much fan art you do, because it's better to try and do something... well, I guess it depends. If you're trying to aim towards this kind of work specifically, then yeah, that's fine, but you kind of want to show that you can be creative on your own as well by coming up with maybe some different designs, or basing things on reality and then showing how well you can do them, you know, how close to reality you can get with them. Let's have a look. So, third person model, 4K texture, okay. Textures, plural, okay, that's already potentially an issue. But let's have a look, see. So you credited the concept artist, nice, that's what you want to do. Okay, so yeah, it looks nice and crispy. Okie dokie. So yeah, you've got some wear and tear on the ends here, and some dust gathering on the top. I see, so it's based on this. Okay, cool. So let's have a look at the model. I do like that you've got the models, it makes it a bit easy to have a closer nosy. But at the same time, it does also put you up for more scrutiny, so you have to be extra careful about what you're doing. So for example, the top of this torch, right? You've got quite a bit of like substantial dirt buildup or dust buildup there, and yet immediately next to it, basically pristine torch. So in those kind of situations, you want kind of like a global mid-level dirt going on, if it's like a dirty, dusty environment or something. And then on top, you could have some additional stuff. But you wouldn't want to see this kind of separation happening. That might be in the concept because it'd be like a solid line between lighting, but it wouldn't necessarily be, you know, how the dirt behaves. Something I'm seeing here as well, you see this specularity that's going on, this straight line here? It's kind of like, it's curved, and then it's on an angle, and then straight, and that's fine, and then it's on an angle again, and then kind of straight again. That's probably because your normals are slightly incorrect on that bake. So what I would do is just make sure that your edges along here are properly beveled either side. You've got like a supporting edge going on both parts of it, and then make sure that your normals are all soft or hard, you know, whatever they need to be for the bake. That's pretty cool though. I like your model. But yeah, I think 4K, especially for a third person gun, 4K is total overkill for that. You want to be a 2K max. But I mean, that's fine. It's a showpiece, you know, you want to be able to show things off a bit more, show off some detail. 4K is okay for that. But just know that if you're aiming for a real-time third person model, you want more of a 2K. Or, you know, similar. Right, let's have a look. Ornamental blade. Okay, so you made it in Maya and ZBrush. Cool. And Substance Painter was used for the textures. Nice. Right, so this was made as a weapon for first-person shooter game. Hence the 4K maps. Okay. So it was made for an art test. Alright, cool. For hard surface models. Right, let's have a look then. 20.5 hours. Cool. Yeah, so I appreciate it's a first-person game, but you wouldn't use a 4K on a weapon, like a one weapon. I mean, character textures can be 4K, you know, because they're the full thing. But I used to just make sure you err on the side of caution for texture size and limitations and that kind of stuff. But very nice work. I like this kind of hand-stamped look with like the leather's been punched, you know, or the, you know, whatever it is. It is leather, isn't it? Like it's a golden fabric. Okay, fairly even. Your texture density is varying between these, so just be careful with that. You want to see more of a straight checker going on, if possible. Now, I know that when you bake, it has something as a good tip for you for when you're doing bakes for materials like this. Try and avoid any kind of diagonal that's going on like this, because yes, that might be how it naturally sits when you unfold things, but if you were to straighten that out instead, that would avoid any sort of jagged normals that are happening, because a normal map, basically, if there's any kind of diagonal, it will give you stepping on the pixels, whereas if it's straightened out, it would give you perfectly straight line. You wouldn't even see that it was a seam there. So a lot of these edges can be straightened, and then what you do is you then you unwrap the parts in the middle along the U or the V with the edges excluded, and that will kind of redistribute everything nice and evenly for you, and it'll make sure that there's minimal stretching between the points, but you've got your edges straightened. So I do the same here. I'd straighten top and bottom there, top and bottom there, make this side straighten on that, you know. So I'd say definitely go through, because this is a nice asset. I'd go through and do this again for the unwrapping. Because you're using Painter, it should support what it's already got. Just don't change any verts. It should update to remember what it was. And I would also make it a 2K. You can work in 4K and then export it as a 4K and then downsize it in, you know, Photopia or Photoshop or whatever you've got to edit the image. That way you've still got a bit more crispness than if you'd have saved it straight out at a 2K. But you're then in the more reasonable kind of texture boundaries. Okay, nice and simple plug-in there. And using packed textures, good. Always good to see a packed texture. Oh, that's a gorgeous reference picture, isn't it? Look at that. Oh, nice. And it's got a nice Damascus blade as well. Did you do Damascus on yours? You did. Nice. Okay, I like it. And you got kind of that oil slick type coloration going on. Awesome stuff. There's a UE4 render. Was the handle black up here as well? Oh yeah, it's the wireframe that threw me off. Okay. That's looking good. I think I like what I'm seeing there. But like I said, I would definitely redo the UVs on this. Let's have a look at the wireframe to see how it's behaving itself. Okay, yeah, fairly straightforward. Nice wireframe. I'd say try and keep a more even distribution going on. Yeah, so I'd watch your distribution of your polys in that middle part. I can see why you've got some extra bits there because it's supporting what's going on in that area. But yeah, just try and keep it more consistent throughout the model if you're going to have more polys. It'll just help things smooth things out a little bit as well. Stuff like this ring could probably be reduced of how many edges you've got going around the outside. Because it's so small from such a distance. See how dark it gets there? So a good rule of thumb that I like to tell people is when you're working on a model, if you're wondering about how dense it should be for verts, you should look at it from the player's perspective or from the render distance that you're going to do it from. So for example, this is a first person, right? So you imagine it's like probably this close in game because you know you've got your character swiping it and whatever. See how dark some of these parts are when you're in wireframe view? That means they're too dense for how much is being shown on the screen. Because on screen, they're only, what, like 3 pixels wide? So you don't need that many polys going on there. But yeah, overall, this is a really nice asset. I'd say, like I said, knock it down to a 2K or even a 1K because the size of it. And work on the UV shells not having so many diagonals going on because yeah, the diagonals are going to be giving you some baking errors that you don't really want. You don't really want in there. But anyway, on to the next thing. It's a good Samaritan revolver from Hellboy. Again, some more fan art. It's good to see you've got your thumb in so many sort of fandoms. You know, so it shows that you're into the kind of culture of this kind of stuff as well. This is pretty cool. Big hefty boy. It's got a good bit of weight to it, which is what you want for this kind of gun. Personally, I wouldn't light it from the back like you have here because it doesn't really show off the gun in its best light, if you pardon the pun. Like, I get why you've probably done that, because you've got the emissive bullet here, but you want to be showing it off in the best way you can. So at the moment, from this angle, you don't really get much of the material read, like the surface breakup of the roughness and that kind of stuff. I know you do here, but obviously that's a 3D thing. Okay, that's a reference from a replica, and that's the movie reference. Oh, nice. Yeah, so it's got this nice kind of edge where it's got breakup and some areas of like heat distribution and stuff going on. So if you got some of that in yours, let's have a look. Yeah, so you got some very similar things happening. So let's have a look at the model itself. Again, it'd be great to see the textures, wireframe, some breakdown stuff here. Make it a bit, try and make it a bit quicker and snappier to get to the best of what you've got in the scene. Okay, so your screws are baked on. That's fine. The holes are modelled in, which is good. You got your bullet there. This feels too sort of like generic grungy, too much at the moment on this. What's it called? The bottom part, basically. Let's see what the reference does there. So you've seen the reference. It's actually pretty much just plain, give or take. So I feel like maybe there's just a generator being left on almost by accident there. So it's kind of just throwing all of it on. You've probably got a layer that's painting a lot of this out, and then it's not been re-enabled for your renders or for your final exports. So just double check that kind of thing. You don't really want to be leaving that in. And yeah, keep an eye out for seams and stuff as well. But overall, though, it's a nice model. I would break up some of the wood a bit more, because at the moment your wood, it feels a little bit flat in the sense of there's not a single scratch on it. Like, there's a lot of scuffs and you know, dings and stuff in the metal itself, whereas the wood, which is a softer surface, has got less damage on it. Normally it'd be the other way around. So you want to show some bare wood or some worn down areas, like where they've been holding it. So this part, for example, would be a slightly lighter, slightly worn away, so that it'd have less polish on it. It would show more of the natural wood colour underneath. And if the natural wood colour is this kind of red, then it would still be worn away some more. I think you've got like a very mild something happening here, but I would have that happen on like a larger patch. And then some nicks and scratches and stuff, especially around like where screws have been put in. It wouldn't maintain perfection there. It would be worn away and softer around there, so a bit lighter. But yeah, overall, it's a nice hefty asset. So what was the purpose of this one? Was this to be used? An FPS weapon. Okay, cool. Yeah, so again, 4K, that's too many K. So just try it in 2K, see how you get on. You can export it at 4 and then downscale it to 2. But yeah, overall, nice model. So we're about halfway through. Let's see. Health potion. I was trying to speed through some of the smaller stuff so we can get to the bigger scenes at the end. So it's okay, cool. You've named your concept artist. Good stuff. It's quite a dense mesh. So it was a test for a game asset. So you made it more detailed as a final asset for portfolio rather than game optimization. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, fair enough. So you got like a beauty model. That's fine to do, and you've mentioned it. That's good. But yeah, usually, I mean, you want to kind of show that you can do the game version, so show the game version. You know, you can always do nicer renders of that as well, but try and show both of them. So you can show even the comparison of how you've gone from the game-ready real-time version and then the fancy showing off beauty version. It's cool. It's a cool asset though. Is this a seam going on here? Oh, hang on a minute. Okay. Yeah, is this a seam on the edge? It looks like it might be. Just keep an eye on stuff like that when you're doing your final renders, because you don't want to be showing off anything but the best of what the model can be. Let's have a look at the 3D model, see if it's there. Okay, so this might actually mess up a little bit because it's got transparency. I think Sketchfab doesn't like that. Yeah, see, they've got like sorting issues, but that's okay. Well, that's not your fault. That's their fault. But yeah, personally, I wouldn't put the model in the portfolio. I'd just show the workings, like the breakdown with the wireframe and that kind of stuff. This is pretty cool. It's got some very detailed fabric on there, which is fine, but I'd be careful because it gets a little noisy. See, from here it starts to kind of get jittery. So what you normally want to do, even if it's like that scale in reality, for an asset you'd want to scale it up by maybe 10%, 15%, just to give it that kind of space so that it doesn't get so noisy when you're looking at it from anything further than right up close. And I'd be careful about stuff like this as well, where you've got very specific dirt around these items here. I get why you've done that, but if you think about how this would be, like, unless this has been stored on a shelf for like 100 years, it wouldn't be dirty in that specific spot, because the second you move it, this will drop down because of gravity. But if it is the case where this was found on a shelf and it's been there for millennia, then you would have way more dirt and build-up and discoloration going on. So, you know, your cork would be all dried out and brittle and lighter. Your fabric here would be all desaturated and sun damaged, or, you know, eaten by moths or whatever it might be. It would be something that shows a bit more extremity. But yeah, so let's move on from this. Again, nice model, but let's move on. Final Fantasy, more fan art. Okay, I feel like, has everything been fan art so far? There's nothing wrong with that, I'm just checking. Okay, so yeah, this feels very clean. I love the style of this blade. But the presentation wise, like, I'd be careful of using, like, it's a lot of wood for one thing. So I'd maybe use like a stone floor or something, just to break up the surface types, because we've got like wood, and then just, you know, metal. It'd be nice if it had some variety. But this is looking cool. I like the addition of the bloom here as well. It's 4K render. Okay, so there's a lot of images of, you know, the same kind of thing here. What I'd say is try and utilize what you've got a bit more. So basically, like I said before, people are going to be looking at your portfolio. They're going to have maybe 5 minutes. They're going to be breezing through stuff. So you want to show them the attention-grabbing things front and center as soon as you can. So all the things that they find most important. So for example, for this one, I would show, you know, your beauty render in engine. So if you have one that's in Unreal, I know that's in Substance, but you know what I mean. Imagine that was your Unreal render. I would show that. I would show the sculpt that you've got here to show that you can use it. I'd show the in-game model with the wireframe on, which, you know, would be, you could get from there, but I'd rather just see the flat images. And then I'd show the texture sheets and maybe one close-up of this kind of detail because it looks cool, but I wouldn't show multiple renders of different angles of the same sword and then different surfaces. It doesn't make a lot of sense to do that. You're just making them sift for the best stuff, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not saying any of it's bad. I'm just saying that you want to show them the concentrated goodness so that they get to it quicker, basically. Also, as a little tip, on every image that you have in your portfolio, you should have your name and like email or contact or something on here, because a lot of the times when people are looking through portfolios for potential people they want to hire, what they will do is they'll go through a page like this and they'll actually just right click to save your image to a folder. And if they go to the folder and they didn't save your name on the folder itself, or they just have a batch of possibilities, like they have a folder called possible applicants or something. If yours has your name on it, you're much easier to contact and find, whereas they don't have to then sift through everything to try and find you again. But yeah, that's that one. Okay, Dwarven Shield. That's funky. Okay. I would... Oh, okay. It looks better here than it does here. I think this Substance Stager renders make it look a little bit flatter. So this could be due to too soft a light or too wide of a source on your light source. Like a bit of a softbox type thing. So I'd get some more specular highlight going on, because at the moment it's kind of like soft and leading it doesn't show much roughness, whereas here you can see you're seeing more of the surface happening. There's also no details on this, so it'd be nice to know why you've made this. You know, like in the last ones you've mentioned about it being an FPS or an art test or something. This would be cool to say, I made this because I want to practice metalwork, or, you know, whatever it might be. This is cool, and again, no, well, actually, yeah, there's credit, never mind, there's credit on the concept. Let's have a quick look at this. Probably not a whole lot to say about this, to be honest. It's a fairly straightforward asset. I would just probably work on the material breakup, unless it just wasn't shown through in the render properly. Yeah, so the roughness is fairly uniform on this. You've got some normal information, but realistically, for things like metal, you get a lot more bang for your buck out of the roughness information than you do for the normal, because metal doesn't really get scratched up and dinged up that badly, whereas the roughness, the surface finish on it does tend to scrape off quite a bit. So that's how you kind of get some interesting variation happening there. Plus, think about this, if this is a shield, it's going to be taking impacts in sort of either the bigger areas, or the front's going to be used to sort of shove things all the time. So you want to get a bit more damage and wear going on in the central points and in these kind of middle parts. So you'd scrape off more of the hammer paint and that kind of stuff. The edges wouldn't be too bad unless they're kind of being dinged. But yeah, it's pretty good. I would probably change how this back bracket is as well. It feels like a little unnatural. It's just kind of pieces in pieces. Plus, is that wood? Yeah, it's got like a noisy normal. I think it's probably just one of the default painter ones, which I appreciate. It's just something to hold up your asset. It's not actually the asset itself. But still, you want to be, if you're going to allow people to see behind your asset, you want to make sure that the behind looks as good as the front as well. Can't hide anything, basically. Right, so we've got 4 assets left, and then we've got 5 scenes by the looks of it. So we'll go through these quickly. Okay, Leviathan Axe, God of War fan art, cool. Okay, so it's made in Blender. It's game ready model. With and without blood. Okay. See, so you straight away you've put the model up front and center this time. That's cool. You've got the renders here. Again, the surface roughness is fairly consistent all the way through. So if you kind of squint, it's like one value of shininess going on. Try and break that up a bit, get some noise in there, get some variety. And again, I can't see roughness maps, so I can't point out specifics, but it would be nice to see that. And you'd want to see some sort of build-up of dirt and stuff around the bottom of the straps, and you know, where things connect, it tends to gather dirt. And with this being an axe, think about it, this part is going to be constantly battered by stuff, because if you're whacking something with an axe, you're going through it with this point here, right? So that means that what you're going through is going to end up touching this quite often, whether that's, you know, enemy blood or it's tree stumps or whatever it might be. This would be taking more of a beating, so it would be visually different. So yeah, you've got here, this is good, you've got your blood coverage and stuff, but again, we're kind of like a little bit generic splatter with it. You want to try and break it up a bit more, so it's got a bit more individual storytelling to it. And plus your handle, for example, is completely clean, which I appreciate you'd be holding that, but you'd also be holding this part, and this has got blood on it, so, you know, try and think about it that way. This is pretty cool. Now, what you want to do, I appreciate why you've done this, but you've got a lot of polys down this end and basically none up this end, and I know that it's because this is a simpler shape and this is a more complex shape. However, this is a much bigger shape. Normally the bigger shapes do require more edges because they have to carry more silhouette to them, and you can also use that surface more if you've got more vertices there for like baking and stuff. You can have a stronger supported bake in that area. But yeah, I would reduce how many polys are in this at the moment, which, you know, it's fine. Like you said, it would be game ready kind of, but this leather strap stuff, for example, I would definitely combine some of this. It doesn't all need to be separate loops, but it is a really nice effort. I do like what you've done. The ZBrush sculpt is looking good as well. I'd be careful how noisy some of the metal is itself. Like, it's got the kind of consistent slight blobbiness to it. I'd knock some of that off. So if you use something like a trim dynamic brush or something, just to take some of the edges off that'll give more of a solid like smithed look to it. Also be careful of things like this where you've got the detail. Can I zoom in on these? No. Things like this where you've got the detail right at the very, very, very edge. Try and pull it in a little bit, because even if the reference does that, you kind of want to give it a little bit of a frame around the outside, because, you know, you don't really want it being right at the edge. It kind of leads the eye off the edge rather than looking at the patterns itself. Okay, a lot of UVs here. Now, this ring thing here, there's a lot of rings because that's from the leather straps. A cool trick you can do for anything that's round like that is if you cut on one of the edges where it's hidden, preferably, so like the bottom of the axe or something, then straighten out this shell completely so it's a strip. Like I said before, you'll get a much better bake that way, and you'll also use a lot less UV space because you've not got all these circles everywhere. You just have a collection of strips. So that usually works out much better. What's all these? Are these the rivets? Like, what is this part? Okay. And you got an emissive texture, right? Okay. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. So, like, your normals are going to be struggling because everything's so curved. Like, try and get those straightness going on, like I said before. A lot of this will just be repeated because it's a common thing that you see in a lot of people's work, and it's something that a lot of people don't tend to think about until it becomes an issue, and then you've got to try and deal with it en masse. So yeah, stuff like this, you could straighten most of this out. And yeah, as you can see here, it's very, very dense with edges at the moment, so definitely reduce some of this. So let's have a look. What were those parts? I couldn't see what they were. I'm looking, in case you wonder what I'm doing, I'm trying to find out what these large patches are here. So are they Are they the rivets? Because everything should be consistent. Like, is that these? Because everything should be consistent textile density wise, meaning that everything should have, like, if you had to put like a checkerboard on this, it should all be roughly the same size squares. Let's have a quick look at this model. I'm conscious I'm taking a long time. We've not even got to the scenes yet. Let's have a quick look. So, let me see what I'm looking for. Can we look at checkerboards on this? Roughness, normal, UV checker. Okay. Yeah, so it is them. So see the way, at the moment, you've got these larger squares here, and then you've got tiny, tiny, tiny squares here. Like this whole lighter orange part is the size of that there. That should be completely the opposite way around. Well, everything should be consistent for starters. So you should have everything as the same size squares. So it should be the same here, it should be the same there, it should be the same over here. But at the moment, it's inconsistent throughout them. And what that does is that results in blurry textures. Or overly sharp textures in certain places. So if, for example, you had less of the UV space being taken up by these rivets, you would have way more space for your axe to be there and to be showing all the glorious detail. But again, everything should be even, so everything would look equally good. If for whatever reason you need to have more resolution in one area, then that would normally be the largest, most notable area. So in this case, that would be the axe that would be getting most attention. The axe head, I mean. So just bear that in mind in the future. You want to keep things even. Right, shoes. So Hedera trainers from the Metaverse Me. Okay. So it's a game, it's a trainer you made for Metaverse Me with a futuristic concept. Okay, cool. A digital collectible. Right. So 3 days start to finish. That's pretty quick. Okay. Made to be using the mobile apps. The poly count's quite low and optimized. Good. For an avatar app, so purely focused on the character. Future use would be LOD. Okay. All modeled, unwrapped, rigged in Blender. Cool. Okay, yeah, fairly straightforward. I like it. And you've got skin changes, which is cool. Nice. So this is what I'm talking about. Show the wireframes like this. This is much better. Yeah, nice even poly distribution going on for the most part. I like it. Nice, some support on edges where it's needed. Again, you could do it straightening some of these UV shells, but now you know that you're going to moving forwards, I assume. That's good to know. But yeah, so far, this is your strongest presentation. Let's check these. Metaverse Me baggy cargo shots. Cool. Okay, so again, about 3 days for Metaverse Me. Cool. Okay, honestly, I don't know a lot about Metaverse Me, so I can't really comment on how these are used or what the requirements are specifically. But this is quite even, very even. So if you need that, that's great. If you need it to be more optimal for them, you could potentially reduce some parts in the flatter areas. Especially going vertically, but again, I don't know the specifics for this, so if they need to be more flowy, you want more of the vertices so that you can have some dynamic stuff happening. But yeah, nice model, nice and clean. There's not a whole lot of storytelling going on, but I assume the intention is that these are brand new, like out the shop, so you wouldn't have that much going on there anyway. But yeah, presentation's nice and clean, showing you wireframes. I'd like to see your textures as well, but I appreciate sometimes you can't do that. Right, so Bloodborne concept weapon. Okay. Bloodborne's one of your favourite games. Okay, that's cool. Stumbled upon a concept and you got the idea for a weapon. Picked up and ran with it. Okay. So you've done renders in a single and dual wield, as well as a video showcasing how it splits apart. Cool, and you've added links to the Sketchfab and the individual maps can be viewed on the model. Awesome, okay. So there's the Sketchfab. Let's just quickly look through the other stuff. So nice animation showing how it disconnects and reconnects. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's a nice weapon, nice presentation. 4K renders, very nice. Okay, this is an awkward UV shape, isn't it? Because it's a triangle. They're always a pain in the backside. But yeah, you could get some minor wins here. You've got mostly straight edges here. There's one here that's curved, so fixing that would give you more of a cleaner bake, and straightening up some of these. So you wouldn't need to like flatten them on the sides, but if you just rotate that shell a little bit so that the top's flat, that'll mean that the whole side going down will be a lot closer to being flat. Not perfect, but closer. But yeah, it seems very dense, this model. I feel like this could be reduced some, especially around the handles. But again, I don't know the specific purposes of it. But just keep that in mind, that you want to try and keep things consistent, keep them as low as you can for as long as you can, and look at it from the player's perspective. Right, so onto the scenes. Sorry, I've already been going quite a while, but we'll quickly get through these scenes and then I will give you a summary. So let's see, low poly stylized mobile marine boot camp. That's a mouthful, isn't it? So it's done for an art test. This is modeled in Blender, textured in Photoshop, and lit and rendered within Unity. Okay. That's cool. You got little guys walking around. Nice. Bit of movement is always good. Okay. That's the whole thing. Nice. So, let me see. So it is modeled, so it is 3D. I wasn't sure if it is maybe sprite based or something because it's a still image. It's a, you know, flat image. But yeah. Not much to say about it, to be honest. It's kind of, it is what it says in the tin. It's low poly stylized work. I think you've got a good use of reusing assets here. I'd be careful about banding and stuff in your textures like this, which I appreciate. It's going to be lower res because it's on mobile. Did it say mobile? No, I don't think it did, but I assume it's mobile since it's using Unity. That usually tends to be the case. But yeah, you've got some it's fairly flat lighting wise, but I feel like that's just to emphasize the kind of the unlit nature of it, as in like when something's low poly and stylized, you know, you want it to lean more towards cartoon style, which is normally unlit. So let's look at this old farmhouse. So you made this for an art test over 2 weeks, okay, alongside full-time work. Okay, so it wasn't 2 weeks working on this, it was 2 weeks after work. That's cool. It's a Welsh farmhouse model from reference rendered in UE5. Very nice. The foliage and ground are store assets. However, the farmhouse and added extras are modeled and textured by yourself. Good. Always point that stuff out. That's good to know. So foliage and ground store. Okay, so we ignore everything here and just focus on the building. Right, so let me see. You made a shader for the house of parallax occlusion mapping to add height to the tiles and bricks. Okay. And you made a shader for the bazaar setting for a toon shader to detect edges within the normals. Huh. Okay. That's interesting. Hopefully there'll be something about that further down. The house itself is a 4K texture set and added extras on a 1K set. Okay. So let me see. How have you tackled the house? Have you done tilables and... Okay. So that's what we talk about the toon shader for. Right. So do you currently have... Okay, yeah. So it is one giant texture for the house as a whole. Okay. And was that part of the brief for the art test, I assume? So I'm guessing this was for something that requires like less textures in the scene, so they just want you to do it as one, because normally something like this you'd do as a tileable texture and you'd have elements that blop into the sides like the corner posts and stuff to just give it a bit more interest and a bit more silhouette breakup. But yeah, stuff like this isn't that common to do all in one go. And see, here's something I was talking about before, again with the density stuff. You've got quite different densities happening everywhere. So stuff like this where it's basically jet black at the front, that needs to be reduced slightly if you're going to see things from that distance. And again, this, what is this? Is this the Ivy sheet? Okay. So yeah, that again, straighten that up, get it all nice and lined up there. That'll help you get some cleaner results. And it'll also make space for things like this where you can straighten this out as well. And you can rejig some things. So anything that's curved like that, it can be straightened out, no problem. You might get minimal stretching in the middle, but compared to the quality overall that you're improving, it's totally worth doing. Okay, and again, stuff like this is kind of just wasted space because you're never going to see behind it. So you could potentially cut those faces out and put some of these pieces in there, and then that would give you more space for everything to be readjusted. So it's interesting. I'm really curious now why it's all one thing, but I understand that. I assume that was a requirement from the brief. Wow, that is a lot of stuff going on for the toon shader. I see what you're doing though. Yeah, okay, fair enough. What's this part? This is the detection of edges for toon shader. Okay. A little tip for you: if you ever want to do a toon shader in the future, that's a bit quicker and easier than that setup you've just done. Is to, if you get your mesh as a whole. And then you duplicate it, apply just a black material to it, to the whole thing, and then invert the normals, and then scale it out very slightly. That will give you a constant black edge around everything, so no matter where you're looking, as soon as it sort of goes past, you know, being blocked, it would show a black edge. That's how they do it in some games, and it's just an easier way of doing it. It's nice that you're showing your reference images, but what I recommend doing is instead of showing each image individually, because you see how long I'm scrolling for whilst talking, I would show a page of reference images, if you're going to show them at all. You know, because normally you use like a PureRef board or something for your references, so you'd show that off rather than show them individually, because it just takes so long to go through. And as I said before, people just don't have time to go through all that. They want to see the good stuff and they want to see it now. So it's good that you started on the top with this stuff. But yeah, personally, stuff like this, I appreciate why it's so far out, because it's meant to be lonely, as it says there, lonely versus tranquil. But you could indicate lonely in different ways. Maybe have more of a build-up and have a lower camera, sort of showing it like further away, but it's actually kind of close. It's just the path makes it seem like it's further away. You'd also want some sort of like additional pathing and stuff happening here, because if you're going to sell it, just sell it, you know what I mean? You want to go the extra little bit. But I appreciate it's an art test, it's short time. Right, Endor, Star Wars fan art. Right, last 3, folks. Okay, created in Maya, ZBrush, and Substance Painter. Rendered in Substance Iray, and scene created within UE4. Okay, it's interesting this is 4, the last one was 5. But I assume it's probably done at different times maybe, and this was finished later on. Detail lighting pass. Okay, it's interesting to start with your detailed lighting pass. You normally want to start with your final render, you know, colors and everything, just to show the end result, and then you can show some breakdowns. Full lighting and post effects, cool. Let me see. Okay, so these are both the same thing, just slightly different angle. So I'd lose one of those two, to be honest, just because you don't need to do that. People will just be like, okay, come on. Tree test, right? So this is the tree. Tree test will be adding these along with plants. So wait, we'll be adding. So is this a work in progress? Because that makes it sound like you're still doing stuff to it. But anyway, yeah. So fern to add a new UE4. So is this? Did you document you building the scene, and then this is a culmination of everything? Again, like I said before, I would put these on a render sheet of foliage, like scene foliage. That way you're not sort of going through every single thing, trying to just see what's going on. Because the scene itself is kind of getting overshadowed by the fact that you've got so many other images. It makes you, like, you see the size of the bar at the side, it makes you want to figure out what's down there rather than look at your scene and spend time enjoying it. So you've got this one, well, 2 fixed angles, but really just one fixed angle. So what you can do in these situations, you can really emphasize what's going on. So, for example, you can get some nice silhouette breakup. So here, see the way your kind of panel here gets lost into the rock, because they're almost basically the same value. If you have like some backlighting happening over here, or something like some sort of bounce lighting happening, or even just a slightly different color rock, like it's slightly lighter, that would help to break this up so you can see the silhouette of the building a bit more, a bit clearer, a bit better. And again, like I said earlier on, I would double check the surface read of these materials. Make sure if this is concrete or metal that it reads as concrete or metal. So check the roughness in other like 3D scans and stuff like that. Check how their maps compare to yours. Again, I can't look at the maps because they're not here. So that's something you want to have in here. You want to show your breakdown as well. So how is this made? Is this a modular kit that you've used? Is it a unique mesh? You know, stuff like this would be modular kits normally. So you want to show that you can make modular kits and build, build buildings using that. But yeah, let's have a look at Bioshock 2 fan art. Okay, cool. In UE5, very nice. So you made it in 2017 and it was rendered and lit in Unreal 4. However, since then, you've made, okay, and you've upgraded stuff basically. You've recreated it with some slight tweaks in UE5 using Lumen and path tracing. Very fancy. So this scene was created in Maya, ZBrush and Substance Painter, and the scene is all game-ready assets. So it took around a month alongside full-time work. Cool. Original was lit quite brightly. So I like that you've basically explained what it was and what it's going to be. That's nice to show that you're thinking about the process. Ooh. Okay, so this is yours. This is your new one. Let me restart this because it started when I scrolled. Okay. That's pretty cool, showing off quite a few things there. Right, so I know this. The aim of this is a relight, right? Yeah, see that there's the old one. Oh, no, so is that the new one? Right, so you've got a video and then you've got a shot, but the shot's quite different to the video. So I'm not sure, is that sort of when everything's sparking up? Either way, just try and look out for inconsistencies like that. If you want to show a scene, try and show it, show the same version of the scene so that we can compare them. Let me see. Okay, so these are renders. This is looking good. What's going on here? Is this moss? Is the floor bulging there, or is there something on top of it? It's hard to tell. So surface separation, I think, seems to be one of the main things to look at for yourself. Is try and explain what's going on here, because I can't right now figure out, like, is it concrete piles or is it moss, or, you know, try and make it obvious what it is. Okay, so it looks like it's some kind of like growth or stones. Let me see. There's the old ZBrush High. Okay, and this is the old full one. Yeah, your new one's definitely lit better. Okay, cool. The wireframe. It's kind of hard to use an Unreal wireframe because it always, you know, blends over itself, but that's fine. Unlit. Again, there's a lot of shots here. We're not even halfway through the page. So you want to reduce how much is going on, how much you're seeing. We don't need to see that many of the old shots if you've redone it. Just, you could show the old video and then show all the new shots. So I appreciate you showing before and after, but if you're going to do that, maybe do it as like a swipe across the screen or something. So you've got half new, half old, or even a side-by-side, just to show the comparisons. But I think a fairly consistent issue I'm seeing so far in the portfolio as a general, it's just too much. So you want to refine things. You want to show the best of what you've got. So concentrate what you've got into smaller doses and keep people interested for longer, because there's less to look at, but it's more interesting to see. And also it's easier to point out where the good stuff is for people, because they're actively looking for your best work. So all you're doing by showing more stuff is diluting your best work, because you're always going to be judged by the worst part. Even if that worst part is great, that is going to be what people see. And remember, okay, this is cool. Again, like I said before, lots of straightening out stuff. I don't want to repeat myself too much, but you get the idea. Cool asset there. Oh, the mask. Nice. I like these masks. They're funky. I actually made one for a party at work. There you go. I made my own for Halloween. Okay, this is nice. Oh, gross. Bones in a bucket. Okay, again, lots of assets here. You could show a collection of assets, showing that they're the kit that you use to make the scene with. Because look at all this empty space that you've got on your project. So you could have, you know, these two shots could easily be side by side. And there's a reference image. So you've done a much nicer job than the original reference image, which is always a good sign, right? So, but the thing is, I can't kind of compare them because I've got to go all the way up here, and by then I've forgot what the reference looked like. So then, you know, it's kind of hard to gauge. This looks way better than the reference did, which is awesome. One thing I did notice in the video, which you've got to be careful with, is, let's see, the drips that are coming down. I think it's drips. Yeah, here. So you're getting exactly the same pattern, just repeating again and again and again. So I'd say try and find a different effect or try and tweak the one that's there. But at the moment, that just looks way too consistent. So it kind of pulls me away. I wasn't looking at the rest of the scene because I was looking at that. And like I said earlier, check your roughness reads on your metals and stuff like that. Make sure that they're accurate, because this feels very shiny for what that is. I assume it's not a suit of armor, but it feels like a suit of armor. If it's meant to be metal boots, you want something more brushed. Look at how construction workers' shoes normally are. If they have metal caps, they're not normally like knight's armor kind of metal. Right, and then finally, last scene. Let's have a look-see. So this is a work in progress courtroom scene. Okay, the Great Overseer. Not sure who created it, but you liked it as a base design. Okay. I appreciate you can't always find the concept artist's name, but I mean, keep looking. You know, if you can't find them, fair enough. But you always want to try and show the names. Okay, so this is an interesting scene. So it's a courtroom. It's very clean. I don't know if that's intentional, but it feels like, I mean, you'd think courtrooms would be clean, right? But there'd still be some sort of variation in the floor. There'd be scuffs and things. There'd be lighter parts and darker parts. So, for example, where these seats are going to be used all day, every day if it's a courtroom. So they're going to be wear and tear around these areas. It's going to be lighter. They're going to be more worn. The podium's going to have worn sections on it. The carpet is going to be trod every single day up and down, so it'll have lighter sections in the middle, be a bit more threadbare, that kind of stuff. You just want some storytelling. And I appreciate this is work in progress, so all that's probably to come. It's cool he's showing off this kind of like fire, is it? That's interesting. Although it looks like the pods are kind of floating on the wall, so I'd want to ground that a bit more. And I can't tell if that's a shadow or if that's something actually holding it on the wall. But either way, I'd emphasize that more, make it more obvious, give it like a metal bracket or something to really show what's going on. Because at the moment you can see like your Unreal blue light shining on the wall. Be careful of that, because that's kind of distracting because the fire is green, so it wouldn't be a blue light, you know. This is interesting. This is a different... oh, I see. So with these like placeholder meshes that you're doing as you go along. Cool. Okay, so we're going backwards in time to the stages. I see. Okay, well what I would do, and there's the original concept, right? Yeah, see, even the original concept's got like some grime and stuff in the tiles and things, so just grime on the walls, and it's kind of a dingy courtroom. So yeah, what I would say for this one specifically, it's probably not ideal to show work in progress stuff on a portfolio. Normally that's for like, I mean, you're an ArtStation, this is powered by ArtStation, so you'll have an ArtStation page as well. Normally for work in progress stuff, I'd save that for the blog section of that, so you can show constant updates, and then when it's finished, or when you have a stage where you've finished a set of assets or something, or you've finished your modular kit, I would then post that as a post on the portfolio. But yeah, so let's have a look as an overview. If I take it in the mindset of I'm hiring somebody, straight away I would judge by the weakest work. And like I said before, that's not saying that the work is bad. That's me saying that even if your weakest work is brilliant, I'm still going to judge it by the weakest version of it. So yeah, what you want overall, less things in your portfolio as total. So I would probably lose the shield. I would lose the laptop and the rock, and the other stuff that's left, maybe lose the potion. The other stuff that's left, I would reduce the texture size. 4K for an IFAS, you don't need to do that. It can be way less than that. And I would show the wireframes, show the textures, and just cut how much is in each scene. So you want to have maybe 4 images in every one of them. So you shouldn't ever have a bar that big. So this one is actually one of the more refined ones, which is great because you've got a nice render, you've got a ZBrush render, you've got something to show your text density distribution, which unfortunately at the moment it's showing that it's incorrect because these should all be even, but you do want to show it when it's correct. I wouldn't put Sketchfab stuff in here or any 3D viewy stuff, it just doesn't tend to be great, but I would show stuff like this. But like I said, straighten out your UV shells, that's another thing to look at through a lot of your work that you've got. Overall, I like what you've got. I think some things, try and reduce this entire thing down to maybe 5 or 6 bits that really stand out to you. So try and think of it from a non-biased way, a non-favorite way. Like I know you'll have favorite projects and things that took the longest, things that were the hardest to do, but purely from a hiring agent's point of view, what would you look at and think straight away, hire this person? They're the things that you want to be first in your portfolio. So for this, that'll probably be your Bioshock work would be up first. I'd take the Overseer one out for now until it's done, because it's a work in progress. It's not showing anything, it's just showing that you're currently in the middle of doing something. And if there's dates on this, it might actually show that it's going to take you a while to do it, so that's also a negative at times. I'll take the farmhouse out for now, because while it is a cool scene, there's a lot of unanswered questions. Like I wouldn't expect to ever see an asset be one UV shell like this. It would be tileables normally if it's in-game asset. And there's a lot of repetition going on as well with the screens that you're using. So yeah. So to summarize, less images in each post, less posts. Take a look at your surface roughness values that you've got going on, just to make sure everything's as it should be. Check your text density distribution for your UVs. Straighten your UV shells out. And I think that was pretty much everything. Oh, show your reference, but show it as one page rather than all the images individually. Anyway, I know that's been quite a long video. Hopefully it's been helpful for you. If you've got any questions, please do reach out and let me know. And if anybody else watching this would like me to look at their portfolio, please let me know below. Or if you go to the link in the description, it will take you to a submission form where you can submit your portfolio for me to look at. So thanks a lot, everyone. See you later. Bye bye.